let's talk about the English supraphonic snare drum. Here we go. This drum has its lineage directly to Motown, directly to the Ludwig Supraphonic. In order to understand the history of this drum, we really got to understand the Supraphonic. The Supraphonic 400, LM400, was released in 1963 from Ludwig. It's a chrome-plated aluminum drum. It has 10 lugs. It has a reliable strainer. It has triple flange tubes. And it is arguably the most recorded drum in history, the Ludwig LM400. Let's just get to that for a moment. How could a drum be the most recorded drum in history? It's because Motown with the Funky Brothers were using the Supraphonic. Uriel Jones, Pistol Allen, Benny Benjamin, the Funky Brothers unit were always using the Supraphonic. So if you want to go back and listen to the Supraphonic drum, just head on down to Motown, Hitsville, USA, right? And you'll hear that drum everywhere. It later gets picked up by Clyde Stubblefield, Jabu Starks, goes into James Brown, crazy, awesome funk. And that's where the Supraphonic has, where they're using higher tensions. Motown is kind of the mid-range one. When Motown moves from Detroit, they go to California, and it gets picked up again. Hal Blaine, the Wrecking Crew, the Beach Boys, Paul Simon. There's a lot of stuff coming out of Motown in California. And so the Ludwig Supraphonic, because of these two very crucial moments in time, is being recorded hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, far more than any other drum. The explosion of this sound really starts to interest engineers, drummers alike, studios. We want that sound. And the Supraphonic then goes on an unbelievable path through the 70s with rock drummers. The Supraphonic in its rock form is the LM402 with John Bonham. It continues on through the 80s. Funk drumming in the 70s, and then in the 80s, the Commodores, that kind of stuff. It's right there. And to this day, the Supraphonic 5x14 is kind of like the holy grail of recorded drum history. It's quite amazing. And rightfully so. It sounds unbelievable. It doesn't sound surgical. It doesn't sound robotic, machine-made, computer-made, digital. It sounds very human. It sounds mechanical. It's got a wonderful ring. It's got a wonderful crack. It's got a wonderful mid-range head sound. It's got a wonderful rim click sound, rim shot sound. It is the go-to drum. made by Ludwig. Now, on the other end of the ocean, you have Premier drums. Now, Premier and Ludwig, I always like to think of this like Ford and Toyota. Premier and Ludwig have been around since the beginning of the 20th century. They are right there, right in the beginning of producing massive amounts of drums. Not just a snare drum, but the drum set. And at one point, Premier was boasting all of the stars on their catalog. Buddy Rich, Elvin Jones, Billy Cobham, the list is huge. John Bonham. They were right there, right alongside with Ludwig. I imagine they were good friends. Premier, Albert Della Porta. He's hearing all of this wonderful music coming out of Motown, and he starts to get really, really interested in recreating the Supraphonic. Now, we got to go back a little bit so you understand the value of what comes after here. In 1940, Premier was being used by the English Army for producing, I imagine, military grade artillery, accessories, all kinds of stuff for the Army, metallurgy, and probably for planes or tanks or something like that. I'm not a war historian, so, but they were definitely involved, and because of this, they were destroyed. The Premier factory in 1940 was bombed, sadly. And I think it's the only drum company that was bombed. England, at that time, God bless them, really liked Premier and moved their factory, the remaining rubble, inland, and created a gigantic, unbelievable Premier drum factory. Initially for the same reason, to help the fabrication of military army accessories, guns, casings, all kinds of stuff like that. From 1940, it took some time for Premier to get back on the ball with drums. Between 1940 and 1946, the engineers in Premier, the craftsmen, were working for the war effort and learning about how to better create metal tubing and chrome. In 1946, Premier boasts its factory on Babley Road and then Canal Street. There's these two facilities, as being a full in-house production company. And I want to say that has never happened before in the history of drumming, even today. Most people will import rims, screws, the shells. Premier was doing it all in-house, which is just an unbelievable fact. Prior to the Babley facility and the Canal Street facility, I forgot to mention it was in Wigston, right? Anyway, so Premier now finally gets a grip on their drum department in 1946. and life goes on. They start back up again for real. In 1958, I'm trying to get you to Motown here. 1958, Premier is looking for a very good distribution contract. And they notice a company called originally Dean and Sons. You probably know them as the Beverly Company. And they buy Beverly drums and for their distribution deal. Beverly drums were making music stands, incidentally, and they were all over the place, and Premier wanted that reach. So they bought Beverly drums for the music stand distribution deal, not yet thinking about what Beverly drums were doing drum-wise. 1958. Then comes out in 1963 the SUPRAPHONIC. And it's almost like notorious of this, it's almost, synonymous with Motown. Motown is also credited as coming out in 1963. So the SUPRAPHONIC is used in Motown in 1963. Both of these things come out, and then you have that explosion that I was talking about that eventually goes to California. And now let's jump ahead. Albert Della Porta, he's the founder of Premier. He's watching what's happening with Motown and listening to the drums in those songs and watching what's happening with the music coming out of California when Motown leaves, moves to California. And the story goes, he comes back to the factory and tells the guys, listen, I want to make a drum like that drum in Motown. If we can just manage to do this, we might be able to jumpstart our company. And the guys at Premier investigate what the SUPRAPHONIC snare drum is. We're talking about the LM400. And they realize it's a chrome-plated aluminum, 10 lugs. And they recognize that Beverly Drums is heavily using aluminum tubing for their drums. Out comes the prototype of the English SUPRAPHONIC, and it's called the Cosmic 21. The Cosmic 21 is Premier's first attempt in getting that wonderful SUPRAPHONIC sound. It starts to rise in sales, and in some kind of scenario like a NAMM show situation, Albert Della Porta takes the Cosmic 21 to a NAMM show where Ludwig is and says, here, check this out. What do you think of this? And Ludwig gives its approval as well, says this is a good drum. Albert Della Porta comes back. He sees that this drum, the Cosmic 21, badged Beverly, not Premier yet, is beating a lot of their drums in sales. And he says, okay, you know what? Let's do this for real. Let's put this on the Premier catalog. Let's get this into production with the Premier badge. And this is where the confusion of what the English supraphonic is. There's a few other snares in the mix. First off, there's the Premier Olympic. The Premier Olympic, some of those drums are chrome-plated aluminum. They have 8 lugs. They have a general strainer. They have the slotted lug, slotted tension rods on the top here. But the Olympic drum from Premier was already in production before Motown came along. It was pretty much like Premier's metal drum. Most of them are steel. So the story of Albert Della Porta wanting to recreate the Supraphonic does not apply to the Olympic. Put that on the shelf. Though it is a great drum. If you can find one in aluminum, you got that great sound. There are 2 others. So you can see where Premier is trying to zero in on chrome-plated aluminum drums and competing with that supraphonic sound. One of the drums is called the Hi-Fi. I love the name, but anyway, it's called the Hi-Fi. And the Hi-Fi is a chrome-plated aluminum drum. It has the coveted 610 strainer. It's the home of the 610 strainer right here. And this one, the 610 strainer is also called the bar tap strainer because you can see it's like a bar tap, you know. Right? So the 610 strainer, bar tap strainer, comes out with the hi-fi snare. There are 8 lugs on that snare. You could say that it's the English Supraphonic 8-lug. But the Supraphonic is 10-lug. And the reason why that's important is because 10 lugs allow you to tighten the head a lot more. That's what allows you to get that Clyde Stubblefield ring in James Brown, for example. So the fact that it has 8 lugs takes it out of the comparison with the Supraphonic, which has 10. They then make the 2000. The 2000, and I'm not really sure of the order of these dates, but it's roughly around the same time here we're talking about. So we're actually, I forgot to mention, we're in the 70s here. Late 60s, 70s. And the 2000 comes out chrome-plated aluminum, 10 lugs, but now it has this really funky strainer. And the strainer rattles, the snares break, they're hard to control in a studio situation, and in the middle of the drum, with the strainer, there's a bar that goes right through the middle of the drum. This bar would get bent and get out of whack. So it's definitely not a workhorse snare like the Supraphonic. And that's what takes the 2000 out of the competition with the Supraphonic. So all of this is moving into the 70s, late 70s. And they still haven't got it yet. Beverly Drums is slowly being phased out. Premier is using their machinery and their aluminum tubing, the excess that Beverly brought with them, right? Using them to try and zero in on this supraphonic sound. And in the mix of all of that stuff, Premier comes out with a steel drum called the 1035. It's called the 1035. And in catalogs, you will see it's said to be a steel, chrome-plated steel drum. As Beverly's getting faded out, they, I guess, also say, okay, I've had enough of this. We're going to really zero in on the dimensions of that supraphonic. We're not just going to make an aluminum drum, chrome-plated. We're going to get the details of the supraphonic. They recognize that the lugs from the 1035, the strainer from the 1035, the butt plate, all of those things match very closely to what the Ludwig supraphonic is. And they take what was originally released as a steel drum 1035 and start using the aluminum tubing of the Cosmic 21. They put on the 1035 lugs and rims and all of these things, the accessories, and chrome it, and out comes this one. This is the English supraphonic. It's got 10 lugs. It's got the beer tap strainer. It does not have the rod through the middle, and it's chrome-plated aluminum. Now this drum, it almost shouldn't exist. It's very hard to find any documentation on this drum. Kind of drove me crazy because scouring through internet, going through my books of vintage gear, going online, listening in podcasts and all kinds of stuff, it's very hard to find anybody talking about this one, the 1035 aluminum, the English supraphonic. I kind of don't even believe I'm holding it because I've only seen one. This is the one I've only seen in person. And I've only seen online another guy just banging the crap out of it saying this is the ultimate sleeper. I cannot find any more on this drum, the aluminum one. The 1035s, as I said, were released as a steel drum. So this kind of even doesn't make sense. Some people confuse the later model, the LM402, which is Bonham's supraphonic, with the 1026 Premier. And the 1026, though, is steel. And sometimes people will say that is the English supraphonic. It's not. Now let's get into the verification of your snare drum, because this drum technically should not exist. And what's even stranger is Premier doesn't continue the production of this drum. They go into other stuff. So there's a period. It's almost as if they had extra tubing and just threw on the 1035 accessories under the guise, of it being a steel drum when it actually was an aluminum drum. So let's get into the testing here. There are three for sure ways of checking if your drum is aluminum or steel. and a little bit brass, but aluminum and steel for sure. One of the first signs, just looking at your drum, is what's called chrome pitting. And chrome on aluminum is known to not work very well. It tends to bubble up and flake off. And so you have this same thing with all chrome on all aluminum drums. It's notorious, like war marks on the Supraphonic and on the 1035 English Supraphonic. So you can see here, I got a good spot. See that? Now you'll notice something. It looks gray, not red, not rust. And that's one surefire way to say that it's aluminum, because this drum is technically 51 years old, and so rust would absolutely be happening on this drum if it was steel. Rust happens in a year easily. Just in the simple humidity of your home, it will happen. What you're seeing here is aluminum oxidation, which actually protects the aluminum from any further destruction. It creates kind of a barrier. So that's number one, but it's still not good enough. Now, during the process, other stuff you can see, during the process of putting the chrome on the aluminum, Premier developed this system, this process of nickel and copper and chrome, and the copper over time, I don't know how it actually happens, but it oxidizes, and sometimes you get this like green-blue haze, transparent haziness on some areas of the metal. This one had it. I had to clean it all off. So that's kind of notorious of the chrome being used on steel because it's so hard to do. I mean, on aluminum because it's so hard to do. You don't get that on steel. That's another thing you can keep your eye out for. Still not good enough yet, though. Excuse me. Moving on, steel drums are most of the time joined and welded. It's very hard to create a steel drum that is seamless. And I have one here. Amazing. Kind of blew my mind when I got it. This is the Tama Red Badge. Slingerland, Swing Star, vintage Swing Star Tama Red Badge. So this is like the moment with Billy Cobham, Elvin Jones, Stuart Copeland. They were using the higher end models, Imperial Star, I guess. But the Swing Star Red Badge is apparently a seamless steel drum, and I can't even believe it. I've looked at this 1,000 times, and I can't find a seam. Usually, it's very easy. It's albeit a very thin line, but you see it behind one of the lugs. It's not hard to find, actually. I can't find it at all on this drum. And I'm pretty sure this is a seamless steel drum. It's very hard to do. It's extremely hard to do. And drum companies weren't able to do this until, until technology allowed them to. So I'd like to say late 70s, 80s, when this started to happen. This is definitely before the English Supraphonic. This is after. The English Supraphonic is an aluminum shell. And with aluminum, this is one of the other things you can look for. Check and see if there's any seam. If there's a seam where the shell's been rolled around and welded right there, you'll see it behind one of the lugs. This one doesn't have any seam. It's nowhere to be found. I've looked at it 1,000 times, can't even believe it. It is a seamless aluminum chrome-plated 1035, the English Supraphonic. If you're like, no, if I was there, I'd find the seam, John, you're just dreaming. Let's move on. The ultimate test. When you have any steel drum, you use a magnet. That's what a magnet looks like on the rim. See it right there? It's not falling off. It's not falling off, right? Put this magnet in the center of the drum. It sticks. No problem. Not coming off. It's steel. If you do this with a brass drum, it won't stick. But with the brass drum, brass is very heavy. So you will feel the difference between a brass drum, same size as the Supraphonic, and the aluminum version of the Supraphonic. Hands down, you'll definitely notice a weight difference. Inside, that's another subject, but inside you can see the yellow of the brass on the inside of the drum. You could probably see the yellow on nicks and dings as well. And the brass rusts in a different way. But talking about the aluminum versus the steel, right? So you see that the magnet sticks without a problem, does not fall off. This is the ultimate test here. Take this. Let's see what magnetism looks like. Put it on the rim. It's right there. That makes sense. Get this so you can see it properly. Here it is. Magnet. It hit the lug. It won't stick. It won't stick. This drum should not exist. It will not stick. It's hitting the casing here. This is another thing that kind of scared me. When I got this drum, I was like, oh, what's going on? It won't stick. That's what sticking looks like. That's not sticking. There it goes. So, what's happening? Well, you have something called like ghost pool on this magnet, on any magnet, in this scenario where, because it's an aluminum drum but there are a lot of metal steel parts, you get a very faint pull, and it pulls itself to the tension rods in the lugs or the rim. So you can kind of be confused about this thing, but let's do it. Let's put it upside down so it doesn't fall. Here it is, right? There it is. Okay? That is the ultimate test. That's how you know that it's aluminum. This drum should technically just not exist. It's not even in the catalog. It's an amazing drum. This is the English Supraphonic 1035, labeled 1035, but with the aluminum chrome-plated shell and the 610 strainer. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Where you might hear this in English culture is with Keith Moon. Keith Moon was a heavy endorser of Premier Drums all through his life, and you're absolutely going to hear this drum there. That is the story of where the English Supraphonic comes from. It's it's an amazing, very complicated story, especially when you're talking about those other great drums, the Cosmic 21, the 2000, and the Hi-Fi, right? All of which are aluminum drums, but have their things that kick them out of the competition. I'm going to now go into a sound test of this drum where you can hear it in a high tension situation and then a mid-range situation. So I hope that you found this really informative. This is the ghost in the industry. The English Supraphonic, labeled 1035, but actually a chrome-plated aluminum drum. More news soon. Thanks for watching. Ciao.